Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through a truly fascinating scientific journey today. We are pulling directly from the 2026 premium edition of the Forensic Medicine textbook to explore Chapter 2, The Echoes of Silence. We're going to unpack the biological timeline of death, specifically looking at forensic thanatology, postmortem changes, and decomposition. If you've ever wondered how medical examiners read the human body to uncover the absolute truth of its final moments, well, you are in the exact right place. Consider this your high-yield crash course. Let's kick things off by putting you directly into the shoes of a medical examiner. Picture this. You're called to an apartment. A frantic landlord has found his tenant hanging from a ceiling beam. The apartment is locked completely from the inside, a knocked-over chair is perfectly positioned beneath the body, and at first glance, it looks like a textbook suicide. But as you step closer to examine the deceased, you notice a chilling inconsistency. In a typical hanging, gravity pulls all the uncirculated blood downward, leaving the lowest points, the hands and feet, a dark purple. But this victim's hands and feet are completely pale. Seemingly defying the laws of physics, heavy purple pulling is concentrated entirely on his back. How is this even possible? Well, we are going to use the exact science on the following slides to solve this mystery together. Section 1. Defining the exact end. So before we can solve how this person died, we really need to understand the foundational science of death itself. And what's fascinating here is that, scientifically speaking, death isn't just a single flip switch in time. We start with somatic death. This is what we typically think of when we say someone has passed away. It is the death of the body as an integrated functional unit. The main engines, respiratory, cardiac, and brain function, experience permanent, irreversible cessation. This is that exact, specific moment that gets officially documented on a death certificate. But here's the kicker. While the system as a whole has failed, down at the microscopic level, things are still very much alive. That brings us to cellular death. This is death at the microscopic level, and importantly, it is a process, not a momentary event. Brain cells are incredibly fragile, right? They'll die within just minutes of losing oxygen. But other cells, like those in your muscles, your corneas, or your kidneys, they can actually survive for hours or even days after somatic death. So the absolute crucial takeaway here is that this exact biological lag between somatic death and cellular death, that is the entire scientific foundation making organ transplantation possible. But hold on, we have to be incredibly careful here, because there is an illusion of death known as suspended animation. This is a profound physiological state where a person's vital functions slow down so much they are completely undetectable by routine clinical exams. There's no palpable pulse, no visible breathing, pupils are fully dilated. The body appears dead, but the cells are actually just preserving their baseline physiology. This can be triggered by severe hypothermia, electrocution, or drug overdoses. That's exactly why emergency medicine has this absolute life-saving clinical pearl, a golden rule. You are not dead until you are warm and dead. Somatic death simply cannot be certified in these specific cases until aggressive rewarming and CPR have completely failed. Section 2, Phase 1, Immediate Postmortem Changes. Let's explore what happens to the body in the mere minutes after somatic death is officially confirmed. We see rapid, systemic changes. First is pallor. Circulation halts, capillaries drain, and the skin turns pale. Then comes primary muscle flaccidity. This is a complete muscular relaxation where the jaw drops and the body loses control of all secretions. We also see something called contact flattening. This means any area of the body resting against a hard surface completely flattens out and loses its elasticity. Finally, there are immediate eye changes. The pupils dilate and become fixed, and the intraocular pressure absolutely plummets, making the eyeball literally feel soft to the touch. Speaking of the eyes, here is a very specific, high-yield forensic pitfall you absolutely need to know about. It's called tache noire. If the eyelids remain open after death, the exposed part of the eye, the sclera, begins to dry out. This deposits a brown or black pigment right across the eye in the shape of two opposing triangles. This is a definitive sign of death, and forensic experts must be extremely careful. This must never, ever be mistakenly identified as a black eye from a pre-mortem assault. Section 3, Phase 2, The Golden Triad of Thanatology. Okay. Once those immediate minutes pass, we start relying on the heavy-hitting scientific tools we're going to use to solve our hanging case, the golden triad. The first part of this triad is algor mortis, or the cooling of the body. This follows Newton's law of cooling, and it's actually the most reliable early indicator for estimating the time since death. But while it's incredibly reliable early on, forensic experts always have to account for real-world variables. For example, an obese cadaver is going to cool much slower because fat acts as thermal insulation. And interestingly, body temperature doesn't always drop right away. It might actually rise after death in exceptional cases, like a fatal pontine hemorrhage, heat stroke, or a severe fever from sepsis. Next up in the triad is rigor mortis, the stiffening of the muscles. In living muscle, ATP separates actin and myosin after they contract. But upon death, ATP is completely depleted, and those muscle filaments permanently lock together. To estimate the time of death here, we use a really brilliant memory trick called the rule of sixes. Visualize rigor as heavy chains that bind the body from top to bottom. It starts at 2 hours. It takes 6 hours to complete, chaining the face, then the neck, the chest, and finally the feet. It lasts for another 6 hours. And then it disappears over the next 6 hours. Now, it doesn't disappear because ATP magically returns, but because autolytic enzymes literally degrade and destroy the muscle proteins themselves. And this brilliantly illustrates a vital differential diagnosis. We really have to contrast the gradual ATP depletion stiffening of rigor mortis with a very rare phenomenon called cadaveric spasm. While rigor involves all body muscles and takes hours to set in, a cadaveric spasm is an instantaneous locking of isolated muscle groups, usually the hands or arms, at the exact moment of death. It's caused by extreme neurogenic or psychological shock, and it can actually reveal a victim's violent final act, like gripping a weapon or clutching weeds while drowning. The final pillar of the golden triad is livor mortis, or postmortem lividity. Think about it. Once the heart stops pumping, gravity simply takes over. It pulls the heavy red blood cells down into the lowest dependent capillaries, causing this purplish-red discoloration. This starts at about 30 minutes, but the crucial point to remember is the 8 to 12-hour window. In the early hours, if you press the skin, it blanches. The blood literally moves away under pressure. But after 8 to 12 hours, those red blood cells hemolyze. They break down and leak their pigment right into the surrounding tissues. At this point, the lividity is permanently fixed and will not fade even if you press on it. But livor mortis isn't just about establishing a timeline. It also acts as a secret color-coded message from the body. Lividity gives us distinct colorimetric clues. For instance, if the lividity is cherry red, that strongly points to carbon monoxide poisoning. If it's dark red, it suggests cyanide. In drowning cases, the lividity is concentrated heavily in the head and the neck. And, crucially for our locked room investigation, in hanging deaths, gravity forces all the blood down into a socks and gloves pattern right in the hands and feet. Section 4. Case Resolution. The Defying Gravity Mystery. All right, which brings us right back to our locked room mystery. Armed with the science of the golden triad we just learned, we can see exactly what really happened in that apartment. Physics and physiology dictate that in a true hanging, blood has to pool in the hands and feet. But our victim's hands and feet were entirely pale. Instead, heavy purple lividity was completely localized on his back. And most importantly, that lividity on his back was completely fixed. So let's look at how this builds the killer's exact timeline. Because the lividity was fixed on his back, we know two things with absolute certainty. Step 1, the victim was killed while lying flat on his back. Step 2, the body had to have remained on its back for at least 8 to 12 hours for that blood to hemolyze and permanently stain the back tissues. Which leads us to Step 3. Only after those 12 hours did the killer return, string up the body, lock the door, and knock over the chair. The infallible biological timeline of livor mortis instantly turns a perfectly staged suicide into a cold, calculated homicide. Section 5. 2026 Updates. Beyond the Golden Triad. That right there is the sheer power of traditional forensic pathology. But while the Golden Triad is foundational, new biological markers in 2026 are pushing the boundaries of what we can uncover. Take, for instance, the forensic necrobiome. This is an absolutely incredible new technique. Scientists can now literally map the microbiome of death. By simply swabbing a corpse, they can track bacterial communities that transition in a highly predictable, clock-like sequence. This allows forensic experts to calculate the time of death down to the precise hour, even days after somatic death has actually occurred. We're talking about unprecedented accuracy. It truly makes you wonder, doesn't it? As microscopic bacterial clocks and algorithms become our ultimate, infallible witnesses, how many so-called perfect crimes of the past might be solved tomorrow? The echoes of silence in a human body can speak absolute volumes if you just know how to listen. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning what you see.